First up, massive, massive, massive apology that I am so much later than I expected to jump on tonight. A few things have happened. So one, I had a client call that went a little bit longer than expected, and then my poor mum needed something printed off and couldn't work it out, so that's taken a lot longer than expected. So yeah, sorry if you've been waiting to watch this. So I just thought I'd jump on and talk a little bit about the brain-gut connection, because that seemed to be one of the really hot topics that everyone wanted some information on. When we are in our mum's tummy forming as what we call a fetus, we've got a certain amount of tissue that is forming and developing and moving. Half of that tissue goes off and forms the brain, and the other half comes down and forms the gut. So that tissue stays connected even when you can through that whole cycle. And eventually there is a really, really big nerve in there that connects the two called the vagus nerve. So if we just take a step back a little bit, neurons are little, I'm going to call them cells in the brain that connect your brain by your nervous system. So the gut, there's 500 million neurons within the gut. Sorry, I haven't said that right. 500 million neurons within the gut that talk to your brain. There are also neurons in your brain that talk to other parts of the body and have lots of other different roles and things as well. So the vagus nerve sends the signals in your brain, sends signals both ways. So either from your brain down to your gut or your gut up to your brain. So when I talk about this with people who have IBS, there's been lots of studies that show that lots of people send extra messages down to their gut from their brain, but not everybody gets an IBS reaction because of those extra messages. So how do we know who's going to get that symptom and who's not? That's why the IBS market is so big at the moment, because we just don't know the answer to that. I was reading earlier that a study has found that IBS and Crohn's sufferers had less vagus nerve tone. Therefore, that suggests that the function of this nerve isn't working as well. So if we think about it logically, if that nerve isn't working as well, then the function of those signals that go to and from the brain and the gut could be interrupted in things like IBS and Crohn's. So this, I guess, I get so many people coming in when I was working just purely as a dietitian. I used to get so many people coming in and asking what they could do with their diet to help with their IBS. And while diet does play 100% plays a role, there is so much else going on with IBS and the brain-gut link that react to that. So what is this telling me? The current frame rate is too low. Okay, I'll have to look into that later. So where was I up to? Yes, changing your diet when you have IBS can help, but it's not the only thing that helps. Like I spoke about last time, there's the 4 pillars of gut health. So fiber, fluid, activity, and stress. And this is where the stress side of it comes into it. So if you are stressed and you have extra stress hormones floating around and you're prone, that vagus nerve for you is prone to sending heaps of messages back and forth, or misfiring and sending them at potentially the wrong times or too many of them, then that's where that stressy gut is going to show up for you. The other thing that connects the brain and gut are things called neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters that are produced in the brain control feelings and emotions, or hormones as well. So serotonin is one of the neurotransmitters or hormones that is produced by the brain, but it's also produced by the gut. So, I don't know, I'll double check the research on this, but something like, I'd read somewhere that about 90% of the serotonin that we produce is produced in the gut. So serotonin is a happy hormone, but it also affects your body clock. So things like having trouble sleeping could be because that the gut health isn't working as well as it could, and not producing the right amount of serotonin where it needs to help you rest. Which is I find that really interesting because that creates a cycle, right? If you're stressed, you don't sleep properly. If you're not sleeping properly, you get more stressed, and then the cycle just continues and continues. So that when I learnt that or read about that, I found that really, really interesting. A lot of what I talk to people about is where we break the cycle and the patterns that we form in our lives, and the stories that we tell ourselves, and the habits that we get used to. So that's definitely one that you can see that cycle happening all the time, whether it be from the gut health or from the vagus nerve stimulation not being right. We don't know. I guess what we try and do is break it from the outside and then hope that eventually that will cascade in and help you change that. But that is where hypnotherapy can be really, really helpful in this sense too, because in hypnotherapy we can bypass that critical faculty, talk to your brain about the messages that it's sending to your gut, and then ask it to try and balance things out. There's just one other neurotransmitter that I wanted to discuss that's produced by the gut, and that's something called GABA, G-A-B-A. The neurotransmitters, I guess, are obviously the cells that help with the millions of bugs in the gut, or they're also produced by the millions of bugs that are found in the gut. So when we're producing GABA, and that's responsible for feelings of fear and anxiety, which again I find really, really interesting. So that stressy gut that we talk about, so is the stress from the brain causing the changes to the gut, or is the changes in the gut causing the stress on the brain? Like chicken or egg, how do we know which one's causing which? And knowing that the vagus nerve can send messages backwards and forwards, it could be either. So it could either be that you've got messages being sent up from the gut to the brain about stress and anxiety, or it could be the opposite and you're getting messages sent down from the brain to the gut about stress and anxiety. Either way, I guess it helps us understand that when you're feeling nervous or anxious, you think about like if you've ever had to do a presentation at school, or I know people who've vomited on their way to exams and things like that. Like we hold a lot of that emotion and things in our gut, and that's why it's really important to be in touch with your energy levels and your stress levels to help your gut. So it's also why a lot of research has been, studies have been pointed in the direction to see whether changing the gut bacteria can actually help with your mood, and change the neurotransmitter levels that are, sorry, this message keeps coming up. Change the level of neurotransmitters that are produced by the gut, and can that in turn affect your gut, your brain health as well as the other way around? Can your brain help your gut health? Things like yoga, meditation, the gut-based hypnotherapy, they are now gaining really, really good evidence that they help just as much as dietary intervention. So think about it, if we combine the two, have dietary intervention plus that, plus the hypnotherapy stuff, the effect on the gut is hopefully going to be even more. I'd love to see a study of it. If anybody knows of any, or has heard of any, or has seen any, or been part of any studies that have been done in this area, I would love to hear more about it. Just another interesting point as well. So studies are now looking into the effect of probiotics, which are basically gut bugs, on those neurotransmitters. There has been, and the production of those neurotransmitters. There's not really any concrete evidence at the moment to suggest that probiotics can help with, as a broad spectrum, on your brain health or your gut health. It doesn't mean that they don't work. It just means that we haven't worked out which ones can work, and which ones maybe don't work. The other thing here to think about is that we basically have a city, a huge country living of gut microbiota or gut bugs living in our gut. So you think about what makes up countries or worlds or universes, it's lots of different people. So there's lots of diversity, there's a lot of different types of gut bugs, and then there's also a lot of different numbers of those types of gut bugs. So between you and the next person, there's going to be lots of different, your gut flora is going to be completely different to theirs. So the probiotic that they are taking may not necessarily work for you because you've got a completely different makeup of material in your gut. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend having probiotics as a blanket rule, like, yep, you've got gut problems, go take a probiotic, that's going to fix that problem, unless that specific probiotic strain has been proven to help that specific problem that you're trying to fix or trying to treat or heal. So one of the examples for that is I recommend a certain probiotic for people who have a gut condition called C. diff, which is a really bad acquired bug that basically you can't get rid of. But it's one of the times where this particular probiotic has been proven to have an effect and have a positive effect on people with this particular gut condition. Apart from that, I don't often recommend it. If somebody's already taking probiotics and they want to continue, I don't tell them to stop. It's up to them. But yeah, if somebody feels good, who am I to tell somebody if they feel good for taking something that they shouldn't take it anymore? That's completely up to them. And like I said before, we've all got all these different makeups of gut bugs living in our gut. And how do I know that the particular gut bug that you have is going to respond better or worse if you take or not take this probiotic? Wasn't where I expected that topic to end up, but we got there in the end. Any questions, pop them in the comments. I haven't seen any comments come through, but I can see there's a few people watching, so hello, welcome. If you've got any comments or questions, pop them in the comments or pop them on the group and I'm happy to answer anything, or if I don't know the answer, I'll go and look for it and let you know what I find. Bye bye.